Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be going over the Azure Pipelines .yaml file. The Azure Pipelines.yaml file is used in the new CI/CD process for Azure Data Factory. So if you want to use the new CI/CD process, not the legacy process, this video is for you, as we're going to walk through the pipeline YAML. And just to show everybody on this call, this pipeline is in a production environment being used to deploy code to build the solution, deploy to development, deploy to UAT, and deploy to production. So this is the pipeline that does that. So let's dive in. The very first thing in my pipeline is what's going to trigger this pipeline. And so what is going to trigger this pipeline is it has to come into this path, and it has to be a branch that includes either the feature, release, or main branch. We are only using main as our collaboration branch, so I could technically delete feature and release because they're not needed here, but I'm going to include them because I am not making changes during this POC. So that's the very first thing is trigger. What that all that means is when I commit a change to the main branch, it's going to trigger the pipeline. Cool. The virtual machine image that I'm using is Ubuntu-latest. It's just going to pull the latest version of Ubuntu to perform this transaction. The next thing I have are variables. One thing you'll notice right off the bat with the variables is my first variable is a group. It's a variable coming from a group called ADF config. And I have a little comment to myself saying this is here, copy and paste this URL to go to where this group is. So I'll go to a new browser, go here. Here's library. I'm in the analytics project. I'm in the library. I'm in the ADF config. So here's my ADF config group here. Now, one thing to note when you're using a group in your variables and you want to use an explicit variable as well, then you have to name that variable. And so since I want to create a variable that's not in the library called working dir, I have to name it and then provide the value for it. You can't just say working dir equals this value. It won't work in variable. Since I have the group here, you have to explicitly name the variable and then provide a value for it if you're using groups. So my other variables I have here are my data factory resource ID, which is the string to my data factory, where I'm using variables from the group within here. And then my ARM directory, this is just when my solution builds, where am I going to put those ARM directories? And then here is the service connection. So this is what is going to allow me to connect into Azure portal from Azure DevOps and perform the functions that I need to. So that's variables. All right, now getting into the stages of my pipeline. The first stage of my pipeline is the build stage. In the build stage, I am going to build the ADF ARM template, and I'm going to have a clean workspace. So that just means to clear out all the garbage that's in there from a previous run, if it's still in there. I'm going to clean it. The steps in this stage are, first we're going to check out self, which just means I can read from my repository directories in Azure DevOps. And then I'm going to install node.js. Then I'm going to install the npm package. And then I'm going to validate my source code. So what this is doing, if you're in Data Factory, this is mimicking the validate all resources button right here. And so if you click this and it fails, this build will fail. And then I'm going to generate the ARM templates. Here I am putting them in the working directory. And then I am going to publish those pipeline artifacts to this location here to be used at a later date. Finally, this is work in progress. This will be another video at some point in the future. I'm trying to programmatically tag the build if it meets certain criteria in the branch description so that I don't send everything to production in UAT, that if we're just doing development, that it dies in the development stage and doesn't try to continue on into UAT or production. So trying to use tags for that. Another video will be posted regarding tags. So next is my development stage. What's happening here is I am going to use the variable group. It depends on the build completing successfully. This is going to deploy to development. For this particular stage, I'm going to be using a Windows box, and the environment is ADF dev. That corresponds to environments in here. So I have ADF dev, ADF UAT, and ADF PRD. By doing this, I can now put approvals and checks at the environment level. If I would like to have that in my pipeline, I can do that at the environment level now within ADO and not in the pipeline YAML file. The strategy is I'm going to run once and deploy. And first, I am going to download the pipeline artifacts from that location that they were written to in the build stage. And then I am going to create uh, I'm going to actually deploy them now. So here I downloaded them. This task, I'm going to deploy them. These are the resource group scope. This is the resource manager connection is the service connection from above. The subscription ID is coming from the library. The action is very important. For my stages, dev, UAT, and prod, they'll all be create or update resource group. Definitely worthwhile to read the Microsoft docs on that. Resource group name is adfconfig.resourcegroupname.dev, and location is East US2. That's important. Template location is linked artifact, and CSM file is ARM directory. And here I have some override parameters. So factory name, I could use the default, but I'm just explicitly overriding it for dev. And then here I have two variables that I need to override in development, which implies that they do not have default values. So if I go over to my repository and I go to the ADF publish branch and I go to my ARM template parameters for factory JSON, I'll see, yes, this one and this one do not have default values because on the main branch in my working directory, you'll notice that base URL has a pipe and URL has a dash, which means do not use defaults. And so I need to provide those defaults at runtime for the dev environment because I'm saying that I do not want to use the defaults at runtime. And that's development. Another video will be posted where I'll go more into depth on UAT in production. Please post comments or questions in the comment section if you'd like me to cover anything additional in that video, or if there's any other videos regarding your data factory CI/CD that you'd like to see, and I'll get those created and posted. All right, thank you all. More to come for UAT. Talk to you then. Bye.